Setting the stage for the US presidential election, Donald Trump accepts a challenge to face off against President Joe Biden in 2 TV debates. But will they actually take place? And what difference could they make in the race to the White House? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Elizabeth Puranam. Breaking tradition in several ways, US President Joe Biden has challenged his predecessor to 2 televised debates ahead of the elections in November. And Donald Trump was quick to accept the invitation, saying he would debate his rival any time, any day. Biden has deviated from the conventional timing, style and organisers. The dates for the sparring match are so early that neither candidate would have formally accepted their party's nomination, and there will be no live audience. The 2 men are already exchanging insults on social media, building up an appetite for poll watchers. So what are the key issues to look out for if and when they face off? And how important are these debates? We'll put those and other questions to our guests in a moment, but first, this report by Imogen Kimber.
In the blue corner,
Donald Trump lost 2 debates to me in 2020. And since then, he hadn't shown up for debate. Now he's acting like he wants to debate me again. Well, make my day, pal. I'll even do it twice. So let's pick the dates, Donald. I hear you're free on Wednesdays.
And in the red corner, Trump's response is,
"It is my great honor to accept the CNN debate against crooked Joe Biden, the worst president in the history of the United States and a true threat to democracy, on June 27th. Likewise, I accept the ABC News debate against crooked Joe on September 10th.
A debate being agreed this early is unusual, since voting for the next president of the United States traditionally begins in mid-September. Biden is expected to attack Trump's flamboyant rhetoric, while Trump is likely to amplify concerns about Biden's age. The rules of engagement are yet to be confirmed. Biden wants strict rules over interruptions and no live audience, while Trump wants a very large venue for excitement purposes. The debate will likely pull in millions of viewers in the United States, despite reports of some voter dissatisfaction with the choice of candidates.
I'm pretty nervous, honestly. I feel like the outcome is pretty chaotic. Like it's very like a pressure cooker kind of feeling. It's very polarizing, and honestly, I feel like our options are a bit sparse to have our 2 main candidates who they are. I guess it's kind of a fox or the wolf scenario.
Trump is facing 88 criminal charges. Some are related to so-called hush money paid to silence an adult film star ahead of the 2016 election who claimed she had an affair with him. Others are for his attempt to overturn the 2020 presidential election result. Biden's presidency has been defined by high inflation, big spending bills for industrial policies, bankrolling Ukraine in its war with Russia, and most recently his support for Israel over its war on Gaza, despite objections from traditional and potential Democratic voters. Polls put the candidates roughly neck and neck, with many voters considering who is most likely to improve the economy, reduce the cost of living, and bring about change. Others say it may not be a case of who is better or more popular, but who is the least worst option. Imogen Kimber, Al Jazeera for Inside Story.
Let's bring in our guests. In Washington, D.C. is Elaine, Kamarck, Senior Fellow at the Brookings Institution and the author of Primary Politics. In New York, journalist Brian Stelter specializes in covering the US media and is the author of several books, including Network of Lies. And also in DC, Steve Herman is Voice of America's chief national correspondent and has his own book coming out. Behind the White House Curtain is an account of his time as VOA's White House bureau chief. A very warm welcome to all of you. Mr. Stelter, I'll start with you in New York. What is the importance or relevance of a presidential debate in an era of increasing partisan divides? How many minds are there left to be made up?
Very few, but it is important to have debates for the following reasons. There's nothing normal about this election. It's a rematch. It's a grudge match. It's Donald Trump promising retribution and Biden promising to embarrass Trump on the world stage. There's nothing normal about these circumstances, but a debate actually is pretty normal by American standards. Americans expect to see presidential debates every 4 years. So this is going to bring a sense of normality, some standards, some political laws of gravity reapplied to this unusual election season. And this is going to be a chance for Americans who have not tuned in, who are not paying attention, to actually size up the candidates. It is very easy in this fragmented media world to ignore the political debate altogether, to tune out altogether. And this debate will be an opportunity, at least, for voters to tune in for the first time.
As you said, there are many things that are not normal, certainly unusual about this presidential election and also about this presidential debate. Mr. Herman, why is the debate being held even before either Biden or Trump are formally nominated as their party's candidate for the election?
Yes, this will probably be the earliest debate ever in a presidential election cycle. Well, Donald Trump is never hesitant, or at least acts like he's never hesitant to get in front of a television camera or a crowd, although he won't have a crowd in the studio for these two debates, from what we've learned. And for the Biden campaign, they're looking at recent polls and anything they can do to sort of show Joe Biden's success story and him acting presidential vis-a-vis Donald Trump's antics that he usually displays on the debate stage. They're hoping to get a early boost for the campaign. As Brian said, you know, there's not a lot of people who are undecided about Joe Biden or Donald Trump. What this election is really going to be about, and the winner is presumably going to be determined by who can really rally the base. So this is an early opportunity to try to rally the bases for the respective campaigns.
Yeah, and I do want to talk about, you know, what kind of issues they're going to focus on to rally their base, to change the minds of swing voters. But Ms. Kamarck, if I can come to you with the same point about, you know, Donald Trump and President Biden, this rematch, I was reading, you know, a recent poll shows that the majority of Americans don't want either Donald Trump or President Biden to run again in this election. So what is the fact that, you know, they are the Republicans and Democrats nominee and are holding this debate even before they're nominated? What does that say about the two major parties' concern for voter sentiment?
Well, it says that both major parties have deep wells of support for their nominees. Otherwise, somebody else would have come along and challenged them successfully. It didn't happen in either party. I think the way to look at this is that there aren't very many undecided voters, but there are a lot of people that the pollsters are calling double haters. Double haters are people who really dislike Biden and really dislike Trump. And part of what they're going to be looking at, I think, is how vigorous each of these candidates is. We started this election year with a lot of worry about how Biden was too old for the job. Increasingly, given Trump's sort of erratic behavior on the stump and in his courtroom, people are now beginning to wonder if he too is too old and too discombobulated to be president. So I think the debates will show the capacity of each of these men, both of whom are older than anybody we've had running ever.
Yeah. Yeah. Mr. Stelter, if I can come to you with, you know, some of the possible reasons why this debate is being held so early. You know, Mr. Herman touched on this, but I want to ask, you know, why do you think the Biden administration wants to hold this debate so early in June? Does it have anything to do with, you know, early voting has really increased over the past few decades? Democrats think they do better in early voting.
Look, one of the aspects of American politics that I feel is broken, that many Americans feel is broken, are the length, the sheer length, the volume of these elections. Primaries go on for so many months. The general election goes on for the better part of a year. It feels like we live in a country where the election never ends. And, you know, think about that. As soon as Joe Biden was inaugurated, Donald Trump was back out there running for president again. So with that in mind, earlier debates make sense. if we're going to have this environment where primaries go on for months and general elections go on for months, then it makes sense to have debates earlier, not wait until the very last inning when people have already started to cast their ballots. So I think this is actually an improvement. And I think that the Biden campaign, is in some ways boxed in by Trump, who for months has been out there saying, I'll debate Biden anywhere, anytime, anyhow. Biden essentially called his bluff and said, okay, I'll do it twice, once in June, once in September. I'll see you there. And that worked. I mean, there were some behind the scenes negotiations that all led up to this. And now it's a huge, number one, it's a huge coup for CNN, my former employer, and ABC to win these debates. Number two, it's a huge responsibility for CNN and for ABC. What questions are asked, how the debates are framed, how the candidates are managed. Because let's be honest, Donald Trump's going to get up there. He's going to scream. He's going to call Biden a liar constantly. He's going to interrupt. It's going to be a very chaotic debate, and it's going to be hard for these networks to manage.
Steve, do you think that given some of the conditions that the Biden administration has set on these debates, that they can be as chaotic as we've seen previous debates involving Donald Trump? Because one of the conditions that the Biden administration has asked for, and presumably Donald Trump has agreed to if the debates are going to go ahead, is mics that will automatically turn off once the speaker's allotted time is up.
These ground rules certainly seem to favor Biden rather than Trump. And we're also making the assumption that these debates are actually going to happen. Here in Washington, there is some skepticism about that, that perhaps Donald Trump, in hours before the debate, may allege that Biden's been fed the questions or the format is rigged or something else, and actually back out of this. But
why would he back out of it after asking for it for so long?
To claim that it's rigged, just like he claimed falsely that the last election was rigged. Whatever it takes to bring attention on him is what Donald Trump desires. I saw that during the 4 years of covering him in the White House. And we'll also see, no matter what the ground rules are, that Donald Trump will try to violate him. For him, he must be center stage. There's no doubt about that, and I expect that's what we'll see, and that is something that will rally his base, and we'll have both campaigns, if these debates happen, after it saying, hey, look, this shows you exactly why you should not vote for that other crazy old man.
Elaine, I want to talk about another very interesting ground rule that Donald Trump again has agreed to. Joe Biden said that he doesn't want an audience, and we all know that Donald Trump feeds off an audience. I was watching one late night host saying that getting Trump to agree to a debate without an audience is like getting a vampire to agree to a fight on a beach at noon during a garlic festival. Why would Trump agree to this?
I think Trump was sort of boxed in by his own rhetoric. He'd been running around the country for so many months saying, Joe Biden's afraid to debate me. I could beat Joe Biden in debate. I mean, his rhetoric is really his usual outlandish stuff. And he got boxed in. He said, okay, I'll debate you anytime, anywhere. And then when Biden put this condition on him, I think he sort of had to say yes. But I agree with, I think, Steve, who just spoke, that I'm not sure this will happen. Okay, I'm not sure this will happen because there's an analogy here between Donald Trump in his courtroom and Donald Trump in debate. In the courtroom, what we've seen time and time again is Donald Trump is unable to control himself. He's racking up fines every day by threatening people, the judges, the jury, the people related to them, and he doesn't have any self-control. And sometimes that hurts him. Sometimes his people love it, etc. Sometimes he's funny. Sometimes it works, but a lot of times he has no self-control. And, I can see him at the last minute cooking up some excuse to back out of this.
Yeah, there have been so many things with Donald Trump. I mean, just off the top of my head, I'm thinking of, the talks that were due to take place, that end up taking place with the North Korean leader that was so on again, off again. Brian, why do you think that Joe Biden, the Biden administration, is bypassing the Presidential Debate Commission, which has organized these debates since 1988.
Right.
There is criticism of the Biden administration that it has sidelined a number of institutions that it doesn't agree with.
Yes, you're right. And in some ways, there was actually, strangely, some bipartisan agreement about sidelining the commission because some prominent Republicans, including those tied to Trump, had been criticizing the commission, suggesting they wanted to do it a different way. And then the Biden campaign was much more firm in saying, we reject the commission's plan. We're going to go a different direction. Why? I think there's a couple of reasons. One, the commission has disappointed campaigns a couple really dramatic times recently. Think about 2020. Donald Trump gets on stage with Biden. Trump secretly has COVID and is very sick. The debate was a total mess. It was a total train wreck. The moderator was not able to control Trump. The commission was embarrassed, and rightly so. So I think in some ways the commission was losing control, losing steam up before this moment. And here's what the Biden campaign said that was notable. They said, we don't think there should be an audience. We don't think this should be a spectacle. And we don't want to wait until the fall. And I think those are all legitimate reasons to break from the commission. But it is yet another example of the U.S. breaking from the norms that have, kind of governed these election cycles for decades.
Okay. Steve, assuming that these debates will go ahead, what do you think the issues that either candidate will try to focus on?
Well, most certainly Donald Trump is going to go after Joe Biden on the issue of the Middle East. And Joe Biden is the sitting president, so there is valid criticism, depending on what side of the political spectrum or that issue that you're on. That will be a very easy one to throw at Donald Trump because he can say, if I were president, this war would have been, over in 5 minutes. The same thing he said about if he gets to be president again about Ukraine and Russia. Also, I think that we'll see the moderators trying to pin Donald Trump down on the issue of abortion because he's tried to have it both ways on that issue. And that will be a strength for Joe Biden. But there is some risk to President Biden because he is the sitting president, and he has to take responsibility for all the things that are perceived as going wrong, not only in the United States, but in the entire world.
Elaine, you wrote at the end of last year about how Biden's unpopularity doesn't necessarily mean that voters won't vote for Democrats, especially in midterm elections. But do you think that's true in a federal election? And, Steve was talking about how Donald Trump will be expected to press Biden on the Middle East, on Israel's war, on Gaza. Do you think that that's changed, at least with some groups that, voting for Biden, voting for the Democrats, even if they don't agree with Biden? Do you think that's changed as the months since Israel's war on Gaza has begun?
I don't think it's changed substantially. I think there are a piece of the Democratic Party that's very worried about what's going on in Gaza. But once the Biden campaign unearths and begins to put ads out about what Trump's attitude towards the Middle East is, Trump's closeness with Netanyahu, who many people in the United States are very angry at and don't think has been a good leader and a good ally in all of this. Once the Biden campaign puts Trump and his positions, many of which are even more extreme than Biden's, I think that's going to go away as an issue. I also think that we've had a phenomenon ever since 2020 rather, where Biden has had very low popularity. Lots of people worried about him. They got a lot of complaints about him. And then when push comes to shove, the Democrats win. So I think that's going to happen this time as well.
That's
think
interesting.
The Democrats are easily. Yeah.
So you think that can happen? You think that can happen on the national level because of the contrast? Steve, let me talk to you about Let me come to you now about reproductive rights. And Elaine, I know you've written about this as well, and just how much it can push voters towards Democrats. If voters perceive a woman's right to choose as being on the ballot, then Democrats have done well in those elections. How do you see that playing out in these possible debates, certainly the election campaign?
I sometimes hesitate to boil something down so simply as I'm about to do. Okay, so with that caveat, I think what I'm about to say is the reality of the campaign. I think it's as simple as the following. Any day that America is talking about reproductive rights, about abortion access, Biden is winning. And any day America is talking about the border or crime, Trump is winning. So at the end of this election, we can tally up the number of days where most of the news coverage is about reproductive rights versus the number of days that most of the news coverage is about the border. And we will probably know the winner of the election as a result. Now, here's the thing. Biden and the Democrats have so much money to spend on ads, on TV ads, on marketing, on messaging, on the ground game. So they're going to be able to deploy a tremendous array of resources to raise the salience of the reproductive rights question, to make it a top front and center issue this summer and fall. That's at least what I expect to happen. And one of the reasons why I tend to agree with Elaine that Biden, despite his unpopularity, is the make America boring, keep America boring candidate. And that's not what Trump promises, right? Trump promises a pretty radical change to the United States. I think most Americans are burnt out by politics. They're exhausted. They don't want to hear about it. And that in some ways actually advantages Biden, favors Biden.
Steve, do you see those issues, reproductive rights and what's happening at the border as two of the most important issues in this election campaign? What about the economy and the fact that regardless of the fact that the American economy is doing well, is growing, Americans don't credit that to the Biden administration, and many Americans don't feel that they're benefiting from that growth?
Exactly. The macroeconomic indicators all look very good. But when you talk to people about what they're paying at the grocery store for eggs and bread and at the petrol pumps for gasoline, it's a different story. And that is most certainly something that Trump is going to attack Biden in if we have these debates. Because that will resonate with the voters, not only Republicans, for Democrats as well. And of course, we can talk with economists about, well, how much can you really blame a president for what's happening with the price of eggs? A lot of these economic indicators lag, and so you can actually sometimes blame the previous president more than the current president. But that sort of nuance is going to be lost on the voters. And, we usually say it is pocketbook issues that motivate people to go to the polls and to choose who they choose. And so come November, or when we have early voting start, the price that people are paying for gasoline is going to be a significant factor, and maybe Israel-Hamas less so. Abortion, as Brian pointed out, a very emotional issue, and the Biden administration and Democrats seem to have the upper hand on that because independents, even a lot of Republicans, don't like the restrictions that are on place now in a number of states. And again, as I said before, Donald Trump is going to have to provide some answers. I think also what's significant to point out, these debates are going to be moderated and hosted by two networks, CNN, a cable network, and ABC, which is more mainstream. Fox News or any other right-wing channel does not have an opportunity yet to host a debate. And Joe Biden's campaign is saying that's going to be these two, and that's going to be it.
Elaine, the first debate is taking place. Brian, go ahead.
I just think it's notable that in an era of independent media, new media models, YouTube and Substack and TikTok and all the rest, all these really valuable additions to the media landscape, and yet who wins the debates for the U.S. presidential election? It's these old school, old line brands. Again, CNN, I used to be there, 40 years old. ABC, it's been around since the birth of television. It's these old school media brands that are still trusted by a large number of people that won these debates. And I think it's important what Steve said about Fox News being cut out of this process, because right now pro-Trump media has no role at all in these debates.
And of course, Donald Trump has said that he wants a debate on Fox News, but Biden administration hasn't agreed to that. We're coming to the end of our discussion, so I want to just touch once again on why these debates are important. Elaine, the first debate is taking place in Georgia, which is a crucial battleground state. Donald Trump is up in 5 of those battleground states. Do these debates, do you think, have the power? How much power do they have to to persuade people, to shape people's minds?
That's hard to say, but put it this way, in any election where it is so close in the battleground states, close nationally, et cetera, in any election like that, everything matters. And so we're talking about the state of Georgia where Biden won it by 11,000 votes. So obviously, this debate taking place in Georgia could be incredibly important to either Biden or Trump. Arizona, where it was won by 10,000 votes. So these are very, very narrow margins we're seeing. And I think that the debate could, in fact, be instrumental in one of these places and perhaps in the whole election.
And Brian, what do you think that are the most important things that we need to look out for in these debates?
Look, the country, the United States, more fragmented than ever. It's easier than ever to miss and tune out and not watch this stuff. So these debates will not reach as high an audience as, let's say, Bush v. Gore in 2000. That said, they are some of the most important opportunities because they're a chance for people to pay attention. So what should we watch for? Number one, does Trump try to back out? Number two, is Biden able to perform the way his aides say and not show his age in a dramatic fashion? Number three, is Trump able to remain somewhat tethered to the truth, or is it going to be a total stream of nonsense and lies? And number four, will the moderators fact check and debunk some of the craziness that we hear on stage? That's a very tall order for these moderators.
A huge responsibility for
what the audience deserves.
And Steve, lastly, what do you think are the most important things to watch out for in these debates?
Well, I think how these candidates look physically. These will be the largest audiences, television audiences that these candidates will be seen by. And a lot of the Republican base believes that Joe Biden is senile and incoherent. So if he's coherent and vertical, as he was during his State of the Union address, exceeding expectations, that's a victory for Joe Biden. And for Donald Trump, if he's able to get his barbs in and try to intimidate Joe Biden, that will be seen by his base as a victory and a reason to go out and vote for Donald Trump.
Those seem like very low bars, but there we have it, the contenders for the US presidential election. Thank you to all of our guests, Elaine Kamarck in Washington, D.C., Brian Stelter in New York, and Steve Herman also in Washington, D.C. And thank you too for watching. You can see the program again anytime by visiting our website, aljazeera.com. And for further discussion, do go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. You can also join the conversation on X. Our handle is @AJ Inside Story. From me, Elizabeth Puranam, and the whole team here, bye for now.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.